Holy smokes. Guys, this weekend was one for the record books. It started out feeling like Groundhog Day, like just another day of quarantine with basically nothing to do, and it turned into me thinking that I was going to get arrested and be going to jail. I'm going to share the story with you. Let's jump into it. So this is one of my rental properties that I've owned for almost 3 years at this point, and it's been one of my best investments that I've ever made, and it's been awesome because I've been able to rent out 3 units on this house here, and I produce monthly cash flow of over $1,600 per month from just this one house. Unfortunately, it also has the sad story of having some police activity at the property just a couple of months ago. And this is the rental property that made me think that I was going to jail just this past weekend. Guys, I want to share this story with you, and in order to do that, I need to share some context and backstory with you so that you kind of have an understanding of what this property is and where we got to the point where we are today. So this property has a couple of basement apartments. I'm renting out the basement apartments, and unfortunately, I've had kind of a bad string of luck with some of the tenants in those apartments. It's a great house and it's in a great neighborhood, but unfortunately, I just haven't had the best tenants coming to rent this place. I've had 2 evictions at this place. Luckily, they didn't go through. The tenants ended up moving out before I had to go through the eviction process, but I did have to file 2 different eviction notices here on the property. That's not what has gotten me into this trouble though. The thing that actually got me into trouble on this property, or so I thought, was actually some other police activity that was there at one of the units a couple of months ago. I had a younger couple come out from back east. They came and moved to Utah to do some skiing, and unfortunately, it sounds like they kind of had some problems with each other. We're doing some drinking, and there was a unfortunate event that happened at the property. Now, I'm not going to get into the actual details of what happened in this situation because it was a really unfortunate situation, to be honest with you. And in fact, I didn't even know about it until after a month had gone by. The cops came, they took care of it. One of the other tenants at the house, helped resolve the situation, and it basically passed. The other tenant who had helped resolve the situation, eventually talked to me and said, yeah, the cops were supposed to reach out to you and, let you know if they needed anything from you. I never heard from them. Nothing ever happened until this weekend. So on Saturday afternoon, I got this voicemail.
Hello, Mr. Steck. This is Sergeant Kevin Duffy. I'm with the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. This call is in regards to some confidential legal matters. You can please give me a call back at your earliest convenience. My number is 385-325. Thank you, and have a nice day.
And at this point, I'm basically freaking out, right? Because I'm thinking, cops never call with good news. The cops are only going to call you because they've got bad news. So I call them back as soon as I can. They gave me a direct line that they wanted me to call, and I didn't get an answer. I left a voicemail, said, hey, I'm just calling you back. Wanted to know what's going on. Call me, I'll be available. Didn't hear anything. Called them again an hour later just to check in. No answer. I didn't leave a voicemail or anything. Didn't hear anything. I'm like, okay, this is weird, but if it were an emergency, they would have called me by now, or they maybe would have shown up or something like that, right? So didn't really think much of it until Sunday morning when I get another phone call from Sergeant Kevin Duffy. And on that phone call, this so-called Kevin Duffy starts going into how asking me personal questions. Do you own this property? Is this who you are? I'm calling you on behalf of, the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, saying that you have a warrant out for your arrest because of a failure to appear. He goes on to tell me that they took a summons to appear in court to the property that I own, and I had signed it saying that I would be there in court on that date, and then never showed up. So they're saying, hey, you never showed up, so the judge has issued a citation, which would then be a warrant for your arrest for failing to appear. So at this point, I'm like, okay, this is weird. I never signed anything like that. What's going on? And he goes through this process of telling me, well, if you didn't sign it, that's okay. We just need you to come into the office. We'll do a signature verification, confirm that you didn't actually sign it. Then we're gonna have a forgery case on our hands as well. But if you didn't sign it, that's okay. We'll just process everything and you'll go about your day. So all of these little things are coming up during this process that are red flags. And as I'm thinking, while I'm in this phone call, I'm not picking up on them because I'm just kind of, I'm caught off guard and just kind of tied up in it because he knows my name, he knows the property address, and I'm thinking, this is from a couple months ago when these tenants had this problem, and now it's circling back. Apparently there was a court case about this that I was supposed to attend on and be a professional witness for the case. And I never knew about this, right? So I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like, wait, great. You know, the cops showed up. There was this history on the property that I thought this was associated to, that they were actually calling about. And here I am in trouble at this point. So he goes on to tell me, well, this is now a federal case. I'm assuming it's because those people were from out of state, and it involves a minor, which means they cannot discuss the case until I'm there in person, and you know, I have to go up the chain of command or whatever to get information about the case, just because of privacy laws associated with a case that involves a minor. So again, at this point, I'm kind of freaking out because everything is like, holy crap, what's going on? I don't even know what's going on at this point. Then they go into this thing of saying, well, okay, you've got warrants out for your arrest. Right now it's a civil matter, but if you don't, you know, post this bail and come into, you know, post bail on the warrants to freeze them, then they're going to be turned over to a criminal case, and they're basically going to dispatch officers to come and arrest you. Now, at this point, you know, a lot of what I just said may or may not add up for how familiar you are with how the court systems work. First of all, I learned that you would never get a warrant in a civil case. A civil case would be something like a business matter or a lawsuit, right? They're never going to serve you with a warrant for your arrest in a civil case. You know, if you get a lawsuit against you, they're not going to come and arrest you as part of that, right? So warrants are really only a thing in a criminal case. Also, when he says, oh, you need to post bail or post bond to freeze this warrant, you can't do that. The only people that can change or you know, alter a warrant to even freeze it, I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't think it is. But the only person who can do that is the actual judge. An officer cannot change or alter a warrant. And you don't post bail on a warrant. You know, you go through that bail or bond process after you've been arrested and you've been in front of a judge, where the judge has said, hey, here's what you're charged with, here's what your bond amount is if you want to bond, or if you want to post bail or do a bond or whatever, then you can get out of jail, and, you know, of course you have to come back at another time. So all of these things are total red flags, especially when you know the court system, kind of know how it works. You would be thinking, okay, this is a scam, these guys don't even know what they're talking about. But when I'm on the phone with these guys, you know, hey, they sound pretty legit. I'm just like, you know, so tied up. I'm like, crap, I got warrants out. You know, I didn't show up. Apparently I signed to the summons that I didn't even know about. There's this court case that's an issue here. And because of the severity of the problem that the tenants had there at the house, you know, I was taking this serious. I didn't want to just blow this off and just pretend like it wasn't a big deal. So they go on at this point and they're saying, okay, we need you to post bail for these warrants to freeze them so that you don't get arrested, and you come in, we'll figure out this whole signature thing on the summons and then go from there, right? I mean, man, they're just smooth talking me this whole way through. They say, okay, you need to gather up $2,000 for each of these cases. There was 2 failure to appear citations, so $4,000 total. And here's where it gets really weird, where I'm thinking, okay, something's kind of fishy here. They say, gather up this money, and you're gonna go to a 7-Eleven or Walmart or a Rite Aid or a Smith's, you know, anywhere that, you know, basically any store out there, and you're gonna take your physical cash and deposit it at the store, at some type of kiosk or with a register or something, to get a receipt with a federal, with an authorization code, and they call this a federal voucher, right? And then I have to take that voucher into the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office to confirm that I actually paid for, you know, posted bail on those warrants, and then I get the money refunded. Now, again, you know, with everything going on in my head, I'm like freaking out because these guys sound professional, right? They were definitely reading off a script. They knew what they were talking about, so I'm kind of freaking out. Didn't pick up on any of these red flags until this moment where I'm like, oh, you're not gonna just take in cash to a Smith's to post bail, you know, to freeze a warrant. Like, everything just wasn't adding up. And at this point, I'm like, okay, this is sketchy. You know, they're telling me, hey, you can't hang up the phone because if you hang up, we might think that you're on the run for these warrants, and we're gonna have to dispatch the officer. So do not hang up. If you do, we're gonna call you back. If you don't answer, we're dispatching the officer. So again, I'm freaking out. I'm like, okay, I have to stay on the phone. I put it on mute. I tell my wife what's going on. I'm like, hey, you need to call my lawyer, who actually happens to be my brother. And you know, my brother goes into this whole thing, you know, saying, hey, I need to talk to these guys. So I've got my brother on my wife's phone, on the phone, and then I've got these guys on my phone on the line. And they're basically talking to each other through, you know, these 2 phones. And, you know, my brother says, hey, you know, I'm his lawyer. If you have questions or if you need anything, you need to talk to me directly. Otherwise, this conversation's over. Here's my number. You can call me. We're going to discuss this matter in private. Do not talk to my client anymore. And he goes to give these guys my phone number, and they hang up and they disappear. And that's when it ended. That's when it was all over at this point. And man, looking back, I'm just like, man, I feel kind of dumb, like getting taken on that. But luckily, didn't lose any money, didn't go anywhere, didn't have to leave the house. Nothing ever came of it, other than just learning about this scam. And, you know, these things kind of conveniently lined up. I had a problem at the property. It was relatively recent. There was, you know, a police report written up about it. So I'm assuming they had access to that in some way. And they actually came after me and targeted me directly because they knew that there was some type of police activity on the property, and it would make the story more believable. So holy crap, if they had changed some of those things in their story to line up a little bit better, it would have been a really good scam, to be honest with you guys. So many red flags looking back, and just grateful it didn't go anywhere. So that's kind of the story of how I almost thought that I was going to jail for this. So I basically, what I believe is they were trying to hope that I would say, hey, I don't have that cash on hand. Can I pay with a credit card? They would take my credit card information, charge it, and then bam, they're gone. So that's what their play was at the end of the day. I don't even know what they would have done if I'd showed up at a 7-Eleven or a Smith's or something. I guess, I don't know, maybe mugged me in broad daylight or something. But so that's just a fun story about an eventful weekend that I had this past weekend. Just kind of a cool story, no real point to it other than be careful. If you are a landlord, or even if you're in business or anything else like that, make sure to have a lawyer before talking to anybody. Do not send money to anybody, especially if they call you. And make sure to protect yourself and know the ins and outs of what looks like a scam or what doesn't. So I'm very thankful. You know, it's one of those things where, like I said, I'm always the guy that's like skeptical of like, you know, how do people get scammed? But when it's a situation like this where things line up in this way, you know, I totally get how this happens to people. So I'm very thankful that nothing happened. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. Subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more about money and real estate. I post about all different things here on the channel, just kind of get in my mind and share with you my thoughts on growing and expanding a business, passive income, self-employment, entrepreneurship, and everything else. So give me a thumbs up here on this video if you liked the story, and I'll see you in the next one.